today it is April 19th, 2021. This is the ad hoc GM evaluation committee meeting. And I'm just going to call roll really quick for our committee members. So Michelle Weber.
Here.
Michelle, and I don't see Joshua Scove, but we will make note when he joins. Of course, I'm here, Caitlin Vargas, and thanks for taking the time, Kristen and AJ to be here, and Camille and Tim for having this be recorded. So thanks everyone, and hello to all the participants today watching this committee meeting. Sorry about that. Sorry, my computer likes to send me lots of notifications when I'm talking. So based off our agenda, I guess really, Michelle, I'm going to look at you since as the committee we're providing feedback on the individual review. So Michelle, did you get a chance to look at the documents that Kristen sent out on April 9th?
And Caitlin, I have a slight amendment to the agenda, and it doesn't affect this first item. So I'm happy to talk about that now or after you get going.
Yeah, that's fine. I still want to see if Josh hops on. So yeah,
sure. Okay, so maybe now would be good. So I had the opportunity to talk to Mark from Transpo on Friday, and so I don't know if Michelle, have you interacted with him yet?
No, not yet.
He's the consultant for the strategic business plan. So it had been maybe discussed in this meeting about him being involved kind of in the second phase of this. And we had a really great discussion. And I think there are some areas in this first phase where he would be really helpful to the board. And so what he and I discussed was about the committee going ahead today and giving feedback on the employee evaluation and monthly updates, that he did not need to be a part of that at this time. But the second item was like how to discuss this process with the whole board. And we thought that Mark would be very valuable to that conversation.
Okay.
So I don't think we should have that. We need to pause that. And then he also will have feedback and recommendations about kind of the remaining topics for this committee, which weren't many at this point, which were like the self-evaluation form and process. So that was one remaining topic. And then he's also going to provide some feedback on how the board can objectively measure the general manager based on the goals.
Okay.
He thinks he can accomplish all that in one meeting with the committee. And then he should be part of the executive session with the board of directors to prepare them for the evaluation process. So that just reduces the agenda items for today. And I feel really positive about that plan going forward. And I think you all will too.
Okay, so Kristen, so when you say reduces the agenda items for today, what are we striking out then?
So I had two agenda items. One was to provide the larger one, probably was to do what you were just about to do, provide the feedback on the employee survey. And then AJ had provided to date, I think 3 monthly updates. So you should go ahead and do that today.
Okay.
But the second agenda item was like how the whole board should talk about the evaluation process, and he's going to be part of that. So you don't need to do that today.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. Thanks so much for that. And I actually had really couldn't commit to the full 2 hours today anyways. So does that work for this group that we just touch on that one agenda item and end early today?
Works for me.
Kristen, you're smiling beneath that mug. You're like, yes, we can meet or end early. That's great. Okay. Well, Michelle, I'd love to hear your comments on the 83-page employee survey, and let's just kind of open that up since I'm still not sure if Josh is joining.
Okay. I did read it, and I guess my feedback would be on the questions and responses themselves. Those seem fairly standard to what I would see in my place of employment, where there's some differences in perceptions and feelings about the organization and how people fit into it. I would be kind of just curious what AJ's thoughts are on working through some of those more frustrated voices. And a lot of, I guess, where my thoughts lie are in the actual comment section. And there were, you know, one thing that I really think we need to, as a board, focus on is the comments that were directed to the board. You know, why do those perceptions exist, and what can we, as a group, you know, leaders and overseers, what can we do to kind of change that perspective?
Thanks, Michelle. I'll go really quick. You know, I always think these are very helpful. I think the questions looked great. It was thorough. It's always interesting to see how some, I would say overall, I felt it was positive when it came to kind of a workplace culture where I saw a lot of negativity was directed at specific supervisors. And there was some folks that were continuously named, I would say. But otherwise, for such a large organization, I would just say felt like the culture piece of it went as expected, and pretty well. But you know, of course, thank you to AJ for doing the survey, because it's just so great for us as a board to just get that glimpse inside. And you know, sometimes it's tough because, as everyone knows, in the retail business, you typically only get feedback when it's negative, and it's kind of the same thing with any surveys. People feel like it's their platform to voice frustrations, not necessarily always report when they're happy. And so it's just good that we're giving them the opportunity to speak either way and feel like they can express what they need to express. So I'm with you, Michelle. AJ, if you're up for it, is there any type of feedback that you want to share?
I do. Thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation with you about this. So, you know, similar to you, I look at the overall ratings. I look at the trends between the 2 years, and then I look at the comments. What I will say is, there's a snapshot about a moment in time, but then there's some information that shows that people maybe have been feeling a certain way. So what I did is, the first thing I did was Mark and I sat down and talked about that. And I will tell you, negative comments are not bad things. To me, that's an employee who cares enough to tell me how they feel. That's an invested employee, and that's somebody, I mean, you all know how hard you are employees in your place if you have to go tell your boss how you feel, and it's not that great. So I do consider those employees that speak up brave. Maybe sometimes they're just frustrated and venting. I don't know. But I do want to make sure that they feel heard. And that was one of the things that I received that information, not like the sky is falling, but oh my God, I had employees who were willing to tell me that they were not doing okay. And for some reason, there has been a pattern of something we've been doing that hasn't been okay with them. So Mark and I both took that positively and said, okay, we hear you, and now we need to go out and do some work. So Mark asked if he could take the lead in working with that group and developing a plan. My understanding is Mark briefed me just last week about the plan that they're developing. And I want to be very careful that, you know, it's not about pointing the finger at anybody, but I will say, you know, it's open knowledge. Our maintenance department is really feeling that the change and the transition in management has been hard on them, and they have not felt supported. And because of that, we do owe them that. So we know that, and of course, we've been in conversations with the director and HR and saying, what did we do wrong and what could we do better going forward? Working with employees is a long relationship. Some of our relationships can be as short as a few years, and a lot of them are 30 plus years. You know, our employees stay with us a long time. So we really have to be committed to a long-term relationship, not a quick fix on that. So that's the approach we've taken. I will say that I've been in conversations already with our union leaders about that. And, you know, one of the first calls after I spoke to Mark was to our union leader and said, you know, what does this mean? Like, just don't sugarcoat it. Tell me what you think. And he gave me a great perspective, and he committed to really working with us and supporting management in doing that, because he knows that he's invested in that work team and he wants to make it better. So to me, when you have a union leadership partnership that's saying, hey, we just want to fix things, we just want to get better, that's really where an organization starts evolving into a better way. So what I want to say is that you're not going to see results in 10 days, 30 days, but we are committed within the next few months of that being a key focus area. And we only know we're doing a good job is when the employees feel it, right? It's about the employees. We can say, I could give you a list of things that we've done and say, like, look how great we're doing. It doesn't matter if the employees don't feel that those are the right things. So that's where we've been at, is to say, we've got to gauge them, and we have to make sure they feel heard. And then we have like the overall workforce, right? Like comments that didn't come from that workforce came throughout the organization, which were a little mixed, you know? So what we're doing is we're working towards some tough conversations with our employee council. So our employee council said that they're also committed. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, our employee council is a group of employees that instead of having a union or association, they have a self-directed membership in it. And that's an opportunity for, we normally meet with anywhere between 3 up to 5 employees who are representing not their interests, but the interests of the non-represented employees. So in those conversations, those have also gone really positive in saying, and that's the same thing, the conversation was with them is, don't sugarcoat anything. Like, don't tell us about how happy other employees are. Let's talk about where we can be doing better. And I will tell you, that's a group of employees that are very candid as well. So we're very happy because they're really willing to say, here's where we feel sometimes disconnected. And here's what we think we can be doing better. So we kind of talked about even carrot and stick. How do we handle all those pieces? So what I will tell you is, in this area, don't expect for me to come back with a quick fix, because you don't just go, here, give them this, make them happy. You know, they're now smiling, the board's happy. That's not how it happens. I mean, these things take a long time to say, I'm building trust with the organization again, but also, why did I even lose trust? And there's some employees that have a great experience, and it's circumstantial, right? Whatever that was happened. So what we are committed is towards, like Mark and I say, an employer of choice. And actually Taryn, who's our HR consultant, gave us this great little one pager that really says that how do we really engage with our employees, that every employee that chooses to work at LTD does so because it's the best employment they can get. Like, right, it's the best place, I choose it. Out of all the organizations, that's the one I want to be part of. And that's the same thing for management towards them, is making that commitment. So those are some of the things that we're going to be working on. Actually, we've already started that process, of course, in that conversation. And then accountability. One of the things that I want to make sure our employees always know is there's accountability all the way to me. We all have a boss. So don't ever think that if you don't feel comfortable in the work environment, that's all that needs to happen. And one thing I will say is, as we go forward, you know, I think about the fact that, as much as, you know, painfulness it's been with COVID, the social distancing, the business community, the lack of all of that, it really has provided me a lot more time for my own employees. From the day I was hired, my job has been focused on the community, being engaged. I mean, on my monthly report, you know, I try to give you just a few sentences. You know, that's a few hours of my time,
Yeah.
right? Those are hours I don't spend directly engaged, but that has really been a focus of my employment and the GM's employment. We want a GM that's really out there and engaged in the community and blah, blah. And I really am. I mean, like literally, I'm off the charts, always engaged. I mean, if you were to only rate me on that, like you can't get any better than me on that. But is that a well-rounded general manager? You know, but of course, my time is going to be focused where the board says my time is going to be focused. But what I will say is employees do value my time, and they're not trying to spend time with me just to argue, but a lot of time is just being out with them, because COVID has allowed for that, because my virtual meetings don't have travel time included. So that's time that I've been able to reinvest back in employees. And I have seen the value in that. So as we move forward, I would say that having a better balance for not just me, the general manager today, but the general manager in the future, is employees do need to see that management presence throughout the organization. So I will say that these last 2020 has been a lot of time that I've been able to spend with employees at all levels. And I really value that. And I think they value that too. So I think we're on the right track, but I can see how me being very busy, writing transit all the time, trying to support our services, going from meeting to meeting, is time that's taken away from them. So I do, that's some of the things that I'm going to really consider going forward is how do I balance that out, given that I get the same 24 hours in a day that all of you get, right? So, you know, people management is what I do well. And if I'm not doing that well, that means my attention is probably not in the right places. So that's one of the areas that I want to spend more time focusing on. And I see Mark's camera turning on, so I'll let him add anything he has to say.
I just quickly, and I think this is kind of a word of caution for board members, and that is the charge for AJ was to conduct a survey. Mm-hmm. There are no results, that are required for that survey. So, certainly the board could get into long conversations about, what AJ should do now, right? But that isn't really part of it. Mm-hmm. And so we just, we got the survey done. AJ kind of told you what, our steps we're going to take to, address the concerns. But I think that's just kind of a word of caution because, again, the evaluation was you conducted an employee survey. So
I remember that well, Mark. In our last conversation, we had to keep reminding ourselves that we weren't basing the eval on the results of the survey. So yeah, I remember.
And I do want to add to that the fact that, I'm always open to having conversations, about the specific things I'm doing, a lot of them personnel, so I don't discuss them in public. So today I'm a lot more general about things, but I do feel that, as my bosses, I have an accountability to you. So I'm always happy to really give you more detail offline because it is my job to protect the confidentiality of our employees and our workforce. And although that's not part of it, I understand that's part of you building trust in me. And especially in a public meeting, this is really not the place to work out the agency's personnel, things. Doesn't mean you might not have an interest and need to have a level of trust and comfort with me. I do think that that's important and we need to build that offline, not at the board meetings. So I do value Mark saying that, but I want to tell you that offline, I'm always happy to engage any board member at any given time. That's what I feel I do owe to you guys who have to trust me that I'm doing the right thing, right? Because you're only here so many hours and then the rest of the time it's me. But I will say is, and the importance of you building that trust in me is that the board not try to advise me what I should be doing next. If as a general manager, I do not know how to manage a workforce, then I probably shouldn't be in this role, right? But if offline we want to have like an offline conversation, I think that's more than appropriate. But at the board meeting, if board members are like, well, maybe you should do this or do that, or like, trust me, if I don't know that, and I'm, you helping me is not gonna do that. So I do need you guys to have trust in me, but it's natural for you to want more details as long as, it's respectful and not in a public setting. I'm always happy to engage you. So I want to let you know that.
And AJ, I need to apologize. Have we sent this out to the full board?
Yes.
And was there an opportunity for discussion on it, or was it just emailed out? I can't remember.
I just emailed out to all board members.
Okay.
And said if you had any questions to respond to me.
And did anyone?
No.
Okay.
Which is okay. It's a lot to digest, and I get that. So, but yeah, but it was sent out because I did have a deadline for sending that to the board.
Okay.
It also went out to all employees too, so.
And I just had a follow-up question because I was thinking about the conversation that was here would be really beneficial to the whole board. But it's not going to be an agenda item for a board meeting then, is that correct?
We refrain from doing that since I'm doing like the GM update, which is kind of a little bit of everything. And, my goal would be that directors would reach out, board of directors would reach out to me, especially if it's something they have such a big concern about it. I think I said it at the last meeting, which was the first meeting, is, none of it should be a surprise. If I'm hearing on my rating day that somebody's upset about something from 3 months ago, that's not the time I want to hear it. I want to hear it well in advance. And if it's a tough conversation, I really want to encourage board members to contact me, either individually or in pairs of board members, whatever is comfortable for board members to reach out to me. I do want to make sure they know that they can always reach out to me. Yeah.
Is this group comfortable if I just sent a reply and said, hey, board of directors, no one has contacted AJ with questions or concerns. I just want to let you know, this will be the time to do it. We were not discussing this in the meeting. Is that group, and maybe even call attention, Michelle, you pointed out, there was a few comments directly to the board of directors, and maybe I can just say, please take a closer look at comments, 74 and 46 and all of that. Is this group okay if I just do that? Send that email out? Yeah.
I think that would be good, but I might consider a little bit further explanation, because I could see some board members thinking that it's not being transparent or things are trying to be hidden. And I think that if you explain, AJ is available, but, a lot of the explanation gets into personnel issues, which would not be appropriate to be held in a public meeting. So please direct those comments to AJ, and even putting some parameters on, like what AJ said, and think about if you wanted to write this in an email, but telling AJ how to manage is not an appropriate comment, but asking for more information, or sharing the concern is appropriate. And so I would consider a little bit more directed guidance to the board to say why it's being handled that way, which it's being handled in the appropriate way. And I think I think Michelle's comment should not go unspoken to the rest of the board. So I would advise that that is passed along.
Okay. That sounds good. I want the board to feel confident that we are having this conversation today and that they have an ability to follow up and what's the appropriate channel to do so.
And
So
I
thank
would
you.
make one more suggestion. So Josh was supposed to be the one that followed up at the April board meeting, remember?
Right.
Maybe Michelle should do that. Because I think Caitlin, you had wanted it to be someone besides you.
Yeah.
But I think Josh was supposed to be following up to say, if you have feedback, you need to be providing it now, not saving it. But I also think the board should hear that the evaluation results were shared, the survey results were shared in public and the committee update, so that they know it occurred in a public meeting. And so
Michelle, is
that
that
would be
okay with you?
another good opportunity.
Yeah. Fine.
That sounds great. Thanks for that. Okay. Yeah, Michelle, I'm really glad you pointed out kind of when the narrative is specific to the board, because AJ, you're right on, we shouldn't be telling you how to address these things, and the stuff's not an overnight fix. But I think with the board, if this is their only chance or opportunity to speak directly to the board, we should really be listening and taking that to heart, and making sure that we're taking that serious. So Michelle, I appreciate you really pointing that out. Okay. Thanks for that, AJ and Mark. What additional things do you feel like we need to discuss today to have everyone feel like we've kind of covered our bases in this conversation?
I would say the only other purpose that we had talked about was if there were issues that you thought the whole board might flag, to help AJ be prepared for those. And I don't know if there are any besides what's already been discussed, and given she's had no feedback. But I just want to raise that point.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Kristen. And that's really why I wanted to send that email to probe the board, because I think the red flag is that folks would tend to wait until we have the evaluation, and we're really trying to be proactive and address these things right now. So I think just the fact that they need to give feedback now and start the conversation now is really important. Michelle, AJ, Mark, any thoughts on what Kristen just said?
Yeah, I'd like to just go back for just a second and thank both AJ and Mark for their comments regarding our role as board members. Yes, we can have concern, and we can just, maybe just want like an overview of what the thoughts are in kind of resolving some of those concerns. But it is not our place to direct Mark or AJ on how to take care of that, with specific details. So thank you for your thoughts and your cautions. I appreciate that. Related to the evaluation process, I think we know we have a lot of work to do. And hopefully we will be able to get some feedback from the board at that meeting, coming up, and kind of talk through some of this. But I would also like to say to AJ that, I'm a newer board member, but I do know that the passion that AJ and Mark both have for making sure this organization is a good place to work, and that people feel, they want to come there every day, and they want to do their best work for LTD and for the community that we serve. I have complete faith that you are both engaged and will, lead that charge with grace and an eye towards, resolutions, and making your staff and your entire organization feel really, really good about LTD.
Thanks for those comments, Michelle. Really quick, would this group be open to be changing our meeting time if I maybe sent out like a doodle poll, I think I was maybe supposed to do that anyways, now that I'm talking about it. Just so we can have a reoccurring, Kristen, did we talk about doing a bi-monthly meeting? Was that what we talked about?
Well, I think that you don't have too many agenda items left, and
Okay.
I'm hopeful that you could accomplish that when Mark from Transpo would come, and he believed that you all could accomplish it in one meeting.
Oh, great.
But maybe reserve for a second. So I would want to make sure we're coordinating with him about schedules, especially, he's on the East Coast also. And then there would be, I believe, is probably an executive session with the board, but we can talk about that just with Mark to prepare, say this is what the expectations are meeting. And so that would, I believe, be in early May. So that's kind of the calendaring items that we have in the foreseeable future.
Okay, thanks for that reminder. So for this group, hang tight. We will work with Mark from TransPro to figure out when the next meeting is and give you plenty advance notice. So we will do that. And Kristen, is that something you need help with, or are you already working on scheduling with him?
I am not, because I didn't know when the next meeting would be. So it would probably be best for maybe Camille or Mark here to do that and just include me in the loop, so I can also make sure I'm available.
Okay.
What I will say, and this is more for Camille, but definitely so that Caitlin and Michelle can weigh in, is typically when board members have already reserved like a board meeting time slot, although it does make a little bit of a longer meeting, sometimes we can tag on there a little bit. So I don't know if there's an opportunity, or like keep it to a Wednesday, times where you guys already have. So Camille, maybe we can find time to do to pull the board that align with Mark's, since he's East Coast time. So we can do that on our end. Camille can send you guys a doodle poll.
Isn't the meeting with Mark just with this committee though?
He's going to have one with the committee, and then there will be one after the committee meeting. And he thinks, when I told him maybe 2 meetings, or even when I said 2 hours, he thought that was way too much time.
Great.
And I said, well, I don't know. But so, he thinks he can get accomplish in one committee meeting. And then I do think there would need to be, prior to the main board meeting, one meeting with the full board, likely an executive session.
Okay, executive session.
And the ad hoc committee work should ideally be done prior to that, but if it's not, I think we're at a place where it's okay.
Do we already have, Camille, something confirmed for our board work session on May 5th? We do, right?
Yeah, we do. We have a special districts training.
Oh yes,
meeting.
okay. I wonder if the board would be open to doing that executive session on Wednesday, the 12th, since that's something we've kind of gotten used to, is Wednesday evenings. And that would squeeze it in before the board meeting. Like maybe a 5 to 6:30 on the 12th, but I don't know if that's too late for Mark since he's on East Coast time.
And he didn't raise it as a concern. It just probably shouldn't be something that comes after a board meeting, because that would be pretty late. So
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we can work out the details on that. But I appreciate his optimism. I hope that we can sail through. That's great. I will touch base with Josh today, since he was unable to make it, and make sure that he feels like I can fill him in adequately on what we talked about today. Anything else that anyone in this group wants to touch on.
Yeah, and I just like to say, as far as, you know, bringing Mark in to help you guys develop a process and a model for evaluating the general manager that, you know, that isn't as messy as the way we've been doing it, is going to be really helpful to everyone, you know, and well into the future, because it's really will tie to our strategic business plan, our scorecards. And so it'll be, you know, pretty apparent, right? Yeah, how you evaluate the general manager, and not just kind of taking things, go, oh, you should do this, right? And so I think it'll be really helpful for everybody. And so I'm really looking forward to that. So.
Thank you. Yeah, me also. Any, AJ?
I do. What I want to say is, it would be my hopes with bringing Mark in. What I want to say is, providing feedback to an employee, this case me. My goal is that it becomes more natural for the board. And I understand that if you don't do that as part of your job, it could appear like, oh my God, I'm going to say something, and it's not always. I will tell you, if it's done often and timely, it's less monumental, right? So what I will say is, sometimes when it's not even a big deal, you're like, I got a concern, I got a question. Ask me sooner than later. Because by the time you talk to me 6 months from now, a year from now, it's like, well, I remember. It's bigger than it was at the time, right? A lot of the things we can kill, and that's the same thing for me with my employees, right? Is how do I just get in there and tackle it and not make it scary or nasty? No, feedback is just feedback. It's a way we communicate, and it's a way for us to always tell each other that we're not on the same page. Let's get back on the same page, everybody. So I do want to encourage you, Michelle and Caitlin, and to feel comfortable with that. Don't feel that every time you have to be like, great job, AJ. Sometimes be like, you know, AJ, I got a question, or I didn't really care for that. And Caitlin, you're very good at that. You're like, oh, I'm hoping we can do better. Here's some things I like to see. I love that, because guess what? The next time I'm like, hey guys, Caitlin really wants us to do a better job here. It's not scary for me, and it's not scary for the team. You know, the team really loves to hear me saying, you know, what I heard is that we really should do a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. We love that, because it's always telling us, hey, you're getting there, but you're not there yet. You got to do a little better. We love that, and it's what we do for a living. So know that it becomes fun, even when the criticism's not like, hey, you're wonderful. When you just say you're wonderful, I can't improve and my team can't improve. But when you're like, hey, can we see a little bit more of this or change? So I want to make it less scary for the two of you, and hopefully through the two of you, less scary for the rest of the board to provide us that input. Know that we welcome it. I know I welcome it. And anytime I've taken anything back, I get positive reactions from anybody in my team to say, well, how do we do this better? How do we provide more input? So I just want to make it less messy, kind of like Mark said. And how do we make it less messy is we have the conversation sooner and earlier, you know, and or timely to what maybe the question or concern was. So if I can do that and really make it more comfortable for you, I think I'm doing my job better. And I will tell you, I will be serving my team a lot better, because they will feel better about the fact that you, with a non-transit eye, means you're giving us some criticisms that our community can give. And we'd rather hear it from you than an angry community member. So you're saving us a lot of headaches. So if we close today and you feel like you can reach out to me, I've done my job today. And I will tell you, my team will be really happy to hear that, to say, wow, like the lines of communications are opening and it's making us a better agency. And with that, I'm talking about a better agency. Caitlin knows that. What I want to say is, we believe we are not, if not the most outstanding transit agency of our size. We're right on the top there. So what I would love our public meetings to be really reflective. Our team is in the process of submitting the most outstanding transit agency award to APTA because we know we are good at what we do. We can always get better, guys. That's okay. But I want you to feel proud of the agency that you govern and feel proud that we wake up every day to go to work to give this community the best value we can. And so I want you to feel proud of our organization and feel that we do have healthy relationships all throughout the organization. So hopefully you leave today thinking so.
Well said, AJ. Thank you for that. Kristen?
Oh yeah, sorry. I know we're wrapping up here, but I realized you all spent the time talking about the employee survey, but there were also the 3 monthly reports that AJ submitted. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, if you had any feedback, that's supposed to be the time that we're touching on that, because you're going to ask the board to do the same thing. So I just didn't want to forget that.
Okay, yes, let's see. Michelle, feel free to chime in. I read these when you first sent them, so gosh, it's been about 10 days now. And I didn't see anything that jumped out to me that I was concerned about or felt I needed to flag. I thought they just seemed like they're progressing normally. What about you, Michelle?
I would agree. I didn't see anything that concerned me, and I appreciate AJ taking the time to provide those updates, because I think that's very helpful in getting that communication started. We just need to make sure we're following through on it from the board side, and you know, appreciating the fact that she took the time to do that. You know, I did watch the last evaluation process, and I didn't necessarily understand some of the conversation related to the goals and what I perceive AJ to have accomplished. So I just want to make sure that we are, you know, feedback is great, but it needs to be both positive and, you know, where can we do better? And I just want to make sure that we, as a board, are encouraging our, you know, Caitlin and I encouraging our fellow board members to take both paths.
Yes.
In feedback to AJ.
And that's something that we talked with Mark from Transpo about. And so that's part of the next conversation he wants to have with the committee, both about the goals and how they're worded and how to make them objectively measured, and how to provide feedback in the way that you just expressed. So I think that's great. You're identifying it, and I think it'll be a really good conversation with him.
Absolutely. And AJ, when you do your update for the meeting for next week, or excuse me, this week, it'll be nice that, you know, to put on there that the budget committee unanimously approved the budget and CIP. So that's exciting that we get to add that to the updates as well. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Kristen. I felt like all of the updates have always been very concise and very relevant to the question that's being asked. So I really appreciate that. So AJ, appreciate when you are short and sweet and to the point in those updates. So, okay. Well, hopefully none of you are dying from allergies like I am. I'm going to go take some more allergy medicine and close all my windows. But I appreciate the time spent here today and the conversation. And once again, just really appreciate everyone having respect for each other when we're having these conversations. So thank you for having that positive communication. And of course, anyone that's listening, or as I follow up with the board members, I just encourage that additional communication direct to AJ if that individual wants to. So I guess with that, we get to get out early today, and I will see you guys on Wednesday. So thank you so much for your time. Meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.